Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the anime Neon Genesis Evangelion. And I enjoyed this anime. Now granted, this review's mainly coming from the perspective of I have never seen the original dub, though at some point, since I like the anime so much, I would like to find maybe a copy of the original dub and do comparisons. But since Netflix decided, hey, we're gonna redub this stuff, this is what I have. And even though I enjoyed it, the main issue I had was the audio mixing was really kind of weird for me, where I'd have to have it put up at such a level so that way I could hear the conversations that were going on, and then suddenly out of nowhere when they're doing the big mech shit, boom, 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 I'm like, shit, too loud. That was my main criticism for what I was seeing. And then the only other kind of criticism I had was how we got to the end. So we start off and we see that Tokyo and the world in general is just kind of really fucked up. We're like, okay, we get introduced to Shinji Ikari, and there's this giant creature pretty much trying to destroy things, and he gets picked up by this one woman, Misato, who was supposed to pick him up and take him to wherever his father was. And we get on there, and pretty much we learn that this monster kaiju kind of thing is an angel, and they want to force Shinji into the mech. And an Evangelion, an Eva. And he has no training for this whatsoever. And I know I had seen about memes of Shinji, get in the mech kind of shit going on, but I'm watching this and I'm like, you haven't trained this kid for shit. He doesn't know what's going on, and you expect him to just go along with this shit with the barest minimum of intel. Granted, they put him in, and what happens? Shit. He gets fucked up completely because he doesn't know how to work the goddamn thing correctly, and the usual kind of thing would happen. I mean, usually you would expect, hey, teenage hero, call to action, go and whoop some ass. Happens, but not in the way that you would think. He tries to utilize the Eva, but gets really kind of messed up with it. He is in a combat scenario essentially as a child soldier, and everybody's pretty much shouting at him to do things, and he's like, I don't know what's going on. And the mech arm gets messed up, and then he wakes up in the hospital. It's like, okay. We find out that the Eva went berserk, killed the angel. It's like, okay. That becomes kind of a running theme because of how this is going on. And you find out that the agency Nerve is run by his father. His father is an asshole. I mean, granted, he could have reasons for that. They aren't delved as deeply as I would like. Not that they don't go into it, because character strength and development really becomes a core component of this. But as I said, when we get to the end, there's just kind of an unraveling that occurs that we don't really get everything completely in a coherent kind of way. So he's pretty much trying to deal with this. Misato decides to kind of become his guardian in this Tokyo 3 battle city, which is actually pretty cool. And it, especially for how it was set in 2015, made in 1995, I'm like, okay, I kind of wish we had some kind of cities like that back in 2015. But he's pretty much trying to deal with his life. He goes to school, which, ironically enough, you find out later on, is pretty much filled with people that are pretty much ready to be pilots, even though they don't know it yet. And it's like, okay, why would you give them anything to do? But you kind of learn it's like, oh, trying to give that semblance of a normal life. And he starts kind of finding the other Eva pilot, Rei Ayanami, and Rei is just, in the beginning when we see her, kind of like a blank slate. Now granted, she does have intense feelings of loyalty towards Shinji's father, and really likes and respects him, but she really doesn't have any friends, she really doesn't really talk to anybody, and she just pretty much tries to do her due diligence. Because she was the other person that they were going to put in the Eva, but she had been fucked up from the other one previously, as we saw that they tried to get her to mess around with it, and it went fucking berserk. So it's like, oh, you guys can't even control this shit. That's cool. I'm just thinking, wow, we've gotten into a fucked up world of what's going on, and these adults are like, hey, you know what's a good idea? We use kids to fight kaiju monsters. And if you've gotten to that point, you are fucked up. Because we get the information that around 2000, there was this event called the Second Impact. Everybody was pretty much like, hey, it's another meteor, kind of like the dinosaurs and shit. We find out that it wasn't, and it was one of these creatures, which similarly has, well, it's not really DNA. It's kind of, they give off a pattern that's like really similar to the DNA of humans and all that. And it's like, okay, we're related to them somehow. All right, we don't get complete confirmation on what's going on with it. Now, granted, there could be other things later on in like the movies that I will get to that could like give me some more information on it, but I'm just kind of going on with what's in the series. Like, okay, so we're getting that kind of information as we're getting slowly kind of rolled into the world as Shinji keeps dealing with what's going on with these angels and learning to be an Eva pilot. Pretty much quitting one time because Masato didn't really like his attitude of it, of him wanting to help out and be liked, but also being horrifically terrified of piloting the Eva, which I get. I really feel for Shinji throughout this whole series. Also Rei and the later Eva pilot of Asuka, when she's introduced. It's like, holy shit, I understand what you kids are going through. This isn't right. But he's dealing with all that and insecurity issues. Rei is trying to even make sure that she's even human, as that becomes important. And then when Asuka's introduced, she's pretty much putting the airs of like, I'm the best Eva pilot ever. While as we go throughout the series, even though she does have some victories and everything, she gets to a point where she's like depressed because she keeps getting her ass beat and she feels completely worthless. I'm like, holy fucking shit. I can understand why, like, I would have been kind of fucked up if I'd seen this when I was younger. I'm like, holy shit, you kind of really need to have a good headspace when you're going into this, because it'll help you with certain things or it'll mess you up. Like, that's fucked up. It's really fucked up. Because everybody's fucked up. This doctor woman, Ritsuko, is dealing with an AI structured system that's modeled off of her mother's brain, who evidently was in love with Shinji's father and tried to do some stuff with him after his mother died, because she evidently got absorbed by an Eva, which also happens to Shinji. I'm like, because evidently sync rates, if you go too high of a sync rate, you merge with it, which I was interested to see what would happen, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool, but we didn't really get much else into it, because we saw what happened when you're like really high with Shinji and really low with Asuka, where the thing won't fucking move or do anything, because that became important when they were dealing with other angels. But we see them trying to figure out and deal with themselves, while in the background we've got everything going on with the angels. Evidently there's this shadowy organization, Sile, which is trying to fulfill a prophecy on the Dead Sea Scrolls, and that Commander Akari, Gendo Akari, Shinji's father, is trying to like fight with them too. Like, they've got similar goals, but it's kind of like, okay, I want a Ferrari, but I want a Ferrari that's like more awesome and built to my specs, and I'm gonna get you to pay for it. I know that's a weird analogy, but they're not completely against each other, but it's like a frenemies kind of thing. And like, okay, we got a kind of same goal, but fuck you. And it's really kind of interesting, but it's put very much, not very much, it's put in the background to the point where it doesn't get the attention I think it deserves. This is definitely more of a character-driven one, as we see Rei try and figure out who or what she is, Shinji just try to figure out who he wants to be, and Asuka having to deal with her personality and the consequences of like trying to appear like this prideful, boastful kind of person, even though she's hiding trauma as much as everybody else. Because everybody's got issues that they've got to deal with in this, and I kind of like that at the end we kind of get people talking about it, but it's kind of had to deal with everything going on with the whole angel thing, because evidently they're trying to prevent the third impact from occurring, because that will wipe out all of humanity. And that mainly comes into effect in that we see other kind of Avas being produced, where, and even other kind of mechs where Nerve's kind of like sabotaging them so they get their money. We see one of the other students, Toji, being brought in as an Ava pilot, but he gets put into an Ava that got jacked up by an angel, and Shinji, of course, then quits again because his father was telling him to pretty much destroy the Ava, but he's like, I don't want to kill my friend, and then pretty much remote controlled it and pretty much almost killed the kid, but he wasn't killed. Shinji's like, screw this kind of stuff, but he has to get pulled back in because other angels are attacking, and Asuka's kind of screwed up, and Rei's kind of screwed up. It's like, oh god, Shinji's got to help out. So I know it's kind of stupid that we see Shinji kind of quit twice, but it is important to his character development and the overall kind of arching narrative, because of course I'd be kind of disappointed of like, he keeps quitting and coming back, but it's done well enough in its execution to make sense. And Shinji's kind of relationship with everyone starts kind of coming more into focus as we get towards the end, where Asuka really can't pilot anymore, and then we see kind of escalation of what's going on with the angels, where Sele actually sent an undercover angel dude, Kaoru, in, and Shinji builds a a friendship with him. And granted, it's pretty much only one episode before he pretty much says, I'm an angel. It's like, what the fuck is going on here? We've got an angel that's like a person, and he remote controlled Unit 2, and Shinji had to fight that down as he was going down into the central dogma for this entity called Adam. Because at one point, we see that Gendo Ikari had gotten Adam the first human. This is kind of confusing because that was kind of the last that we saw and dealt with it. And evidently it's important because I guess that they got it down there kind of in a position similar to the crucifixion of Christ. Even they had a spear, but they used that to kill another angel, and he comes down and he's like, what? No, this is Lilith. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? I was confused because this stuff was kind of background and not really shown to, like, delve with very well and develop very well, and this is kind of like getting towards the end of it. I was like, oh cool, there could be more stuff on this. We even get to a point where we see that Gendo Ikari's got like this weird kind of bubbly eyeball thing on his hand. I'm like, oh, was that because of when he like tried to get Rei out of a position where her Ava went crazy? And I'm like, is he being controlled or something? I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that's kind of dangling and strange, mainly with the overarching plot. Not really so much with the character development. So we see that the dude's like, hey, this isn't what I was here to start the second impact for, so Shinji, kill me. And he does, and it messes him up. And that's where I'm going to term the kind of clean end for it. It's really kind of weird to explain because we get kind of nice development until we get to episode 25. Then it kind of breaks. And I've never really seen this kind of thing happen before in an anime. At least one that I've been like reviewing and watching. In that the journey through this anime had all these things. We had mech fights, we had people dealing with their traumatic issues and all that. And we get this whole thing about the Human Instrumentality Project. And then that's kind of where it ends, and then 25 and 26 deals with the Human Instrumentality Project occurring. Well, we don't see how that happens. We don't understand how that has relationship with like Adam and Lilith and the angels and who started what or whatnot. It kind of has this break of like, whoa, I didn't expect it to be almost like we had ended it at 24 and then somehow we just spat out. And we're like, what? Now the thing is, it needed to be threaded in better, and we needed to understand how we got here. Now granted, this destination of Shinji pretty much dealing with all of his issues and coming to his realization of liking himself through these 2 episodes and figuring out who he is as a person is nice. But the thing is, you could tell that something was going on during production and that they either didn't have enough budget or enough time or something to the effect to make the square hole go in the square peg go in the square hole. They almost had to do something of like weird shifting of getting it through a kind of rectangular one just to be like, fuck it, fit it. It's really kind of strange. I don't know any other anime that's gotten to a point where I'm like, the ending's not botched, but it's not right. It's like, what? I understand that there's like some movies that kind of do alternate endings, or not alternate, but like complementary, that actually flesh this out more, because we immediately go from him and Misato kind of talking about the whole Kaoru situation and Shinji killing him to weird kind of cuts of like Misato killed, Ritsuko killed, and Shinji dealing with all this stuff and figuring out who he is, and also relationship to all these other people who show up, because evidently the Instrumentality Project was to fuse all of humankind's souls together to kind of fix the holes that are in people's hearts from like trauma and everything like that, as we delve into the traumas of like mainly Rei, Asuka, Misato, and Shinji being the one completed at the end where he finally kind of figures out that he can like himself and that people are important to understand our own selves and our own forms, and that's why it works so well when they're kind of congratulating him at the end on that kind of reef, and then him kind of thanking his father, his mother, and like the other children, because he goes through all these things. He even sees an alternate version where it's actually done in the style of kind of a slice of life, where Misato is a teacher, Rei is a transfer student, Shinji and Asuka are childhood friends, and Shinji is a completely different person, personality-wise. And I like the ending and seeing Shinji and the rest of these characters kind of deal with their traumas and figure those out. It's just the presentation of it was really kind of weird and strange and didn't kind of line up as effectively with the rest of the show as it should have. And I kind of wanted to do a review of this portion, this series, before I got into the other movies, because you kind of want to base it on this first, see what other outside works out, and also, I don't know if I could take all the things that I've got remembering for this series, plus what I'd have to do with like the other movies. That way I could do a better idea of comparing and contrasting this ending with anything else that is added by the other movies. So, overall, I really enjoyed this series because it was very, very character driven and had that influence a lot of the plot and the action. And even for being done in 1995, the animation quality holds up very well, and the action scenes are awesome. You see the kind of unnatural way that the angels move and the Avas move, and how combat just kind of works in a kind of visceral manner of you're always kind of watching the back and forth and seeing what else is going to be done. One of the episodes that really did a good job is where Shinji and Asuka had to kind of sync themselves up to this song in order to be able to take out this kind of dual splitting angel. That was a very awesome action sequence. Same when they did the angel that was from orbit, was essentially going to bomb itself into Tokyo 3, and they had to work together, the three of them, and just overcome it. I'm like, yeah, that was pretty awesome, because it delves into not just seeing the action and seeing all these cool effects, but them as a team working together and overcoming this obstacle in the angels. It just works very well and keeps you engaged and being like, wow, I really like this story, even though it kind of starts going crazy at the end and batshit, and you're like, wait a minute, what about all these things? And granted, that's the pretty big issue I have, is that the plot is not as clean as I would like. Does that mean it is bad? No. But there's certain things that are threaded throughout, such as Adam and Lilith, that I'm like, okay, I'm almost of a mindset of, I don't mind a thing teased or hinted throughout, but you kind of need to do some kind of payoff, otherwise, why is it there? Now, I don't need it to be a big payoff. I don't need Adam to be this like convoluted villain thing that was going on throughout the whole series, who brain controlled Gendo Ikari and had him make a sex dungeon out of Earth. I don't know. I'm just... You know how certain anime can go completely off the rails. I don't need that. I'm just like, if you're putting something into a story, make sure that you use it for something. Even good or bad. It was just like, okay, that sounds interesting. I'd like to know more, but we didn't get it, at least here. So, definitely good for action. Definitely good for character development. And a crazy kind of trippy plot going on. And I would not recommend it. At least definitely research it if you've got like like the blood. Granted, even nowadays it would be considered tame, but it's kind of got blood and everything in it, not to a horrible extent. So if you're like little kids around, no, because there's a lot of trauma and sex. Well, not a lot of sex, but like sexual references, Christian references that are kind of like done in kind of crazy, interesting ways. And it's like, okay, you're gonna need somebody to explain these things going on so people aren't like at least smaller or kind of like people getting into their teens. It's like, okay, now granted, teens definitely kind of works with like Shinji and the rest of them, but this is definitely going to screw you up if you see it and you're like, I'm not prepared for this. So that kind of worry. So those are my opinions on the anime. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.